Of Lions Prairie Woodlands Arbor Day celebration. It's a real honor to have all of you here. We're going to start the proceedings. First on the agenda is the tree planting. It's an honor for the Friends to have on its board Dr. Tom Blewett, who's a biology professor at Clark College. Tom is going to supervise the tree planting and is in all Friends functions. We are going to be educated in the process. Dr. Tom Blewett. Maybe I'll give you just a brief word of introduction about Arbor Day, since that is the occasion for our celebration today, and then we can move outside and talk a little bit about planting trees. Actually, Arbor Day had its roots not too far from here. In the last century, as people began to settle in the Midwest, one of the things that was particularly missing as you got west of the Mississippi is the presence of trees. But the only place you could find trees would be along the river valleys. And as you move on to the Great Plains states, the river valleys came to be more and more sparse compared to what we're used to in this area here. So a tree was a pretty precious thing for many reasons. It provided shade, it provided fuel, it provided building materials, and it was also something to relieve people from the monotony of the flatlands of the Great Plains. So in the 1870s, in Nebraska, Julius Morton began a tradition that we celebrate today as Arbor Day. Although the dates and degree of celebration vary from state to state, it is something that began in a very practical way for people settling in the Midwestern states, but has broadened in scope today to include planting of trees in cities, to beautify cities, and to help reforest areas that have been harvested of their timber. So one of the things that we'll be attempting to do today with our tree planting ceremony is to try to restore a little bit of the heritage of the site that we're on today. If you had a chance to look at some of the photographs on the wall over here explaining the history of this site, this is the Otto Junkerman farm, and one of the things that the Junkermans did was to plant lots of trees, including an apple orchard. There isn't much left of the original orchard. There are a few old trees left standing just outside the center, and we'll see those, but we're planting for the second year now some additional apple trees in that orchard as a part of our Arbor Day celebration. So today, we'd like you to join us in celebrating Arbor Day and also in recognizing the history of the Otto Junkerman farm here at E.B. Lyons Center. And we'll try to do some of the plantings, hopefully as well as Otto Junkerman did some years ago. I think now we'll go outside and find a place to plant a few trees, and we'll talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts of tree planting, and maybe we'll pick up a few clues about planting our own trees along the way.
Well, they're going to do the tree planting first.
Oh, that's good down there, yeah? Oh, no, it's fine. No, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do that. We were near, but not too there. I think we got something going. Too far, so right here.
See, they already have the hole there. See that hole? There's the, see the hole right there by that man? See the hole? Like, you gotta talk. See the tree in the front? You gotta prioritize tree down in that hole. And then see that bucket of water? Pour water in there and give the tree a drink.
I think they did the learning on that.
Kind of a curved line down right over there. That path.
Pick the holes the other day. So you know exactly where they are. So we're going to be
We'll
along.
start with these. Okay. We'll go through a few of the basics of tree planting here today. Apple trees, as with most fruit trees, are actually a grafted plant, and we can see on this specimen where the graft has been made. Here we see a little bend in the trunk, and what is usually done is that the stem is grafted to a rootstock, and the stem and the rootstock each have different properties. And one way in which we have derived better fruits as well as hardier plants is through the use of grafting techniques that give us some of the qualities of both the shoot and the rootstock. So one of the things that you want to be careful of when you plant fruit trees is to make sure that as you do the planting, that you keep this graft area above the soil surface, at least 4 or 5 inches or so. One of the things that plants can do, if you aren't careful with that, is they can send out little roots from the stem. They're not the same as the regular root. They call them adventitious roots, and if you have ever seen corn plants in the field with little roots coming off of the stem, it's the same type of root. Well, you get this below the ground surface and you'll get adventitious roots coming off of the shoot, and the shoot will start behaving like its own rootstock, and you'll lose the qualities, or at least some of the qualities that you tried to gain in having a grafted rootstock. So that's one thing to be careful of as you plant your fruit trees. They've saved some work for us in preparing this particular tree. You can see it already has a mixture of soil and peat. The old school of thought in planting, as Betty informed me today, I'm not a horticulturist, I'm a botanist. There's a big difference in case you're not aware of that. I just pretend to be a horticulturist today. The old school of thought is that as you plant your trees, you should mix the topsoil with some peat to help aerate the soil. And the new school of thought is that you should not put the peat in because you make the soil too loose and the roots will tend to concentrate in the hole. And I suspect that one can argue for either case. In any event, we're going to start with the peat already mixed with the soil here today. Yes?
Maybe at this point, it would be appropriate to give an informal introduction to the two of the people who are going to be planting trees. The formal introduction will be just momentarily, but we are very honored to have with us the Director of the Peace Corps, Laurette Ruppy, and her Chief of Staff, David Scott. And that's all the introduction I will give you now, but we will learn more about them later. But it's a great honor to have them with us to plant these trees.
Okay. I'll do my best to get this thing out of the pot and get it in the ground here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how you can care for the plant once it's in the ground. Some of the things that you want to do to make sure that it's going to be a strong and healthy tree in the years to come. If the soil is really dry in the pot, this isn't too bad, but if the soil is really dry, one thing you can do before removing the tree from the pot is to add a little water to the soil and maybe let it stand for a bit so the water has a chance to work its way through the pot. There are a couple of reasons for this. One practical reason is that as the soil dries, it will simply crumble as you remove it from the pot. But there's a more important reason from the standpoint of the plant. This plant has been removed from the ground and placed in a pot, and in the process it's lost some of its roots, and it has established now some very small roots that will be able to take up water and nutrients from the soil. And every time if you've done a lot of work with house plants, you know the same argument. If you transplant, very often the plant will go into some degree of shock because you are disturbing the smallest little roots that are actually extensions of single cells. And it's those little tiny root hairs actually that are most important for the plant to be able to get water and nutrients. So if you have a tree that's already been started like this, it's helpful to minimize the disturbance to the tree. Now sometimes if you order from a nursery small fruit trees or shade trees, they'll come wrapped in a bag without any soil whatsoever. In those cases, they are usually pretty small, the branch has been trimmed off, and of course there aren't any root hairs established. And if you receive stocks like that, they tell you to soak the roots in water for a while. And what this is doing is it's helping the roots to grow a little bit to get those little root hairs started, so that when you are ready to plant, the roots are alive and vigorous when you put them in the soil. So right now we're going to try to preserve a little bit of the head start that this tree has and try not to disturb all the roots. And good night. Somebody's prepared. That's a pretty good coverage now. Yeah. It's not cheap.
Well, got some water in the bottom, Tom?
Well, we'll get it in there a little bit. Now see, this plant has relatively little roots developed at this point, but you can see some white roots started here and here. And it's these little white roots that have the tiny little root hairs that you can't see that are most important, so we'll try not to disturb them too much. One thing, when you're planting a tree or any plant, you want to make sure that your hole is big enough so that you don't have to pack the roots in the hole. You want to give the roots plenty of room to spread out. You want to encourage the roots to start growing in all directions from the tree rather than forcing them to grow into this hole here. And that's going to improve the chances of success for the tree and probably will help ensure that it will grow vigorously within the first year. If you pack the roots too tightly, the tree may survive, but it might take several years before the roots can spread out effectively. Remember, we're watching where this graft is here. Well, we'll have the Peace Corps plant the next two trees and see if they learned anything.
I want your daughter to help.
Now, as you put the soil in, you can tamp it down a little bit with your foot or
press it down with your hand as you fill it in. It's best if you pack a little as you go rather than getting all the soil and then trying to stand on the top. One of the things you want to make sure as you put the soil in is that you don't have large air pockets. You want the tree to be firmly in the ground so that as time passes and it rains, the soil isn't going to loosen and the tree may fall over into the hole that you planted. One of the things that will help as you put the soil in is after you've got enough soil in place, we're going to add an apple tree on the way over, a couple of them actually, which have two main shoots so that you have a fork in the tree. And that, as the tree gets older, makes the tree especially susceptible to storm damage because it's very easy for the tree to split. Having equal load on each of those two branches, it's very easy for that tree to split in the middle of those two branches. So it's better to encourage one main stalk with a number of lateral branches off of that, if you can do that by pruning. So if your tree has two main shoots, which this doesn't, if it has two main shoots, you can prune one shoot back and encourage it to become a less important branch. Usually, when you prune, your first concern is to make sure that it has good growth form and that it isn't going to be stressed, as we see here. In this case, since we're going to have to prune this year to reduce the stress, probably we'll set this tree back a little bit. If you prune excessively in the first year or two, it takes a little. Good. How are you?
I'll go look into
No, water.
Yeah, Steve didn't make it sound. I know you see.
Not my usual 320, huh?
Yeah. We, in fact, we
Where's the jeans?
Looks like a lot better. Black.
So he and Steve had that all planned out.
Pronounce it at the same time.
Well, no, maybe that's better. You know,
Here, we'll get it.
it's better to plant them before the leaves are out.
Roll down.
Actually, we can put a little more dirt in there.
Why do they make you do it all? I know, I'm just used to, you know.
This soil is loose. We're going to have to raise that up another 4 or 5 inches here.
Oh, boy. Looks like they needed to fix this one.
Did you do that on purpose, Tom?
I didn't think this all.
Talk to
Yeah,
Dick.
but they you know, they get along so good.
Oh, I
I only
know,
want
I'm
to
just
talk.
kidding. They had a garage sale yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Since they were thinking about having it.
Wonder how they went. Debbie called him because his birthday was the day before. And she
I met a
while he was on the phone, he said, well, listen, Debbie, he said, there are people out there and I don't know anything out there.
You know, when
That's right.
Well, she said right
yeah.
A little more of a ceremonial plant.
Welcome to Iowa. You think I was at the paper?
You have a different definition.
I think so.
I like this part. Now, which one is
Yeah, it was very. Yeah, over there.
Regular grass is rolled in that tail. Yeah. I think we got a hold of some dates here.
Seen you for a while. I buy TVs for your dad. Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I think we
what year? Yeah.
When they read Gutsy, what he did. Yeah, he This is hard. I was out there, Huffman's house out there. We had Alice Buchanan. Buchanan. Yeah. So anyway, next week.
Oh, yeah?
My apple trees are all in blossom now. It's the best year ever for blossom. So my mother's years.
You have to leave your stick inside, okay? Or outside.
He should be inside by now. Hi, how you doing?
Let it rain, let it pour, let it rain, oh, let it pour. 'Cause I got them deep river blue. Let it rain, right, right on, let those birds just sweep along. 'Cause I got them deep river blue. In the back of my old boat, I'm gonna sail the ship flow. 'Cause I got them deep river blues. I'm going back to Muscle Shoals, things must be there on the corner. Thank you so much.
Laurette Rupi, Director of the U.S. Peace Corps, Congressman Tom Talkey, Peace Corps Chief of Staff Dave Scotton, Supervisor Lloyd Hayes, friends of Lions Prairie Woodland, friends of friends, distinguished guests, welcome to our Arbor Day celebration.
It's wonderful to have you with us. It's wonderful to have such a beautiful day for this occasion. I hate to come on the stage following this beautiful music. I am Calvin Gatch, and I'm honored to represent the Friends of Lyons Prairie Woodland. The Friends, as we call ourselves, is a support group for the E.B. Lyons Nature Center and the Mines of Spain conservation area. We're a group of people interested in conservation. Through our programs such as today's, we try to make the public more aware of the environment and ways that we can protect it, learn from it, and enjoy it. We also have a lot of fun. If you're like myself, you'll find membership in the Friends a continuing education. You'll find that the friends you make here are among the most worthwhile benefits of membership in this group. There's a cluster of red pine trees just outside the Rock Chapel that Otto Junkerman planted more than 100 years ago. If you sit at the base of one of these red pine trees on a spring day like today, you're in for a storehouse of sensory treats. One of my favorite sounds is the sound of the wind blowing through pine trees as it comes and goes. The phlox and the wild mustard that form a canopy under these trees give the air just a delicate scent of sweetness. The ground is soft from years of pine needles falling on the ground. There's no way that Otto Junkerman could have known more than 100 years ago how much pleasure so many people would derive from the trees that he planted. The legacy of Otto Junkerman is truly heartening, especially for those of us who are planting trees today. Let us hope that far into the 21st century and beyond, that people derive pleasure and inspiration from our efforts. We are honored to have with us today representatives from another group whose legacy is rich and enduring. The Peace Corps provides the immediate good of easing poverty and raising living standards around the world. Even more importantly, however, the Peace Corps creates a reservoir of cross-cultural friendships, which are, in the long run, the most certain means of reducing global tensions. And finally, we have with us Dubuque's premier musical group, the Unstrung Heroes. And I checked the authenticity of what I'm just about to tell you with one of the members, and she said it was okay for the Friends to claim partial parentage to the ascendancy of their star, because since they came on the scene 6 or 7 years ago, they have created rave reviews wherever they've gone. They have 2 albums out which are available for them. It's always a pleasure to have them at one of our functions. Before we move on, I'd like to recognize certain individuals in our midst whom we're especially honored to have with us today. If you don't know them already, hunt up their name tags and meet them, because I know them and they're wonderful people, and they're the kind of people you shouldn't leave today without having made their friendship. One of them is Leo Free, who was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal in the very early days of the Peace Corps.
Leo is currently the owner of Cascade Forestry Service. He was a forester in the Peace Corps. Another is Doug Schleiser, who was among the first group of Peace Corps volunteers. Doug and his wife Donna served in the barrios of Lima, Peru. Doug is currently on the art faculty of Clark College. We're also honored to have with us Don Beckley of Bellevue, who was recognized last year as the outstanding Peace Corps volunteer in Africa. Also in our midst are some people responsible directly for the Friends of Lyons Prairie Woodland and the Mines of Spain. I would like to acknowledge and ask them to say a few words to us. The first is Supervisor Lloyd Hayes, whose efforts, not only on the behalf of conservation, but on historical preservation, are without equal. Supervisor Lloyd Hayes.
First of all, I'm not going to speak very long because I was at a roast last night and they give you only so many minutes. Anyway, what Calvin has just said, I have to repeatedly say that I am so proud to be part of what's happened in this area here and all the people that were involved to get this job done. I think we have all kinds of gold here in these hills all around us. We even got some on top of the courthouse. I'm not sure you know that. But anyway, I think the riches that we have here, and we should really deeply think about it if the way we had to go about and to preserve it and for the future of the next generation. I just can't say enough for everybody that's been involved in it. I've been around this area since I've been a boy, and that's be close to 64 years coming up. And all these hills and all these valleys and how they were going to destroy it. And I just can't say enough for the people that got involved to preserve this area. It's just a wonderful area. I think we can really hold our head high and again thank the people that are involved in preserving. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Also in our midst, we have with us from the park section of the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, Jim Scheffler. Jim.
It's really a pleasure to be up here in God's country. As I usually tell our field people, any place out of our central office in Des Moines is God's country. This really is. Mr. Hayes talked about this area, the Mines of Spain, the Lyons Prairie Woodland Complex. This is one of the most significant, if not the most significant, natural and historical area in the state of Iowa. It's a great honor to be up here today to represent the central office of our Parks and Recreation Areas Bureau. I would say one thing I want to emphasize has been the DNR presence and efforts in this area would not have been possible without the tremendous community support which the community of Dubuque has given toward our efforts in this area, and especially the efforts of the Friends of E.B. Lyons. Without their help, I think our efforts would be not nearly as significant as they have been today. So thank you very much for inviting me here, and thank you for all your efforts in the past.
Thank you, Jim. We're also very honored to have with us Congressman Tom Talkey. Congressman Talkey is a friend of conservation. He's one of the original co-sponsors, going way back to the beginning when it wasn't deemed feasible, of the government's CPR program. He's been recognized by both the Sierra Club and the Wildlife Federation for his efforts to conserve natural resources and the environment. If all us conservationists are as diligent in caring for the prairies, the forests, and the wilderness areas, if we're as diligent as Tom Talkie is in caring for his constituents, the environment is in great shape. Having said that, I've been warned that I must keep this a non-political event. I was told I had to come up with something critical to say about Tom Talkie. The only thing I could think of critical was that his coattails weren't quite long enough. Tom Talkie.
Many times as I have traveled around the 2nd District of Iowa, I have thought how wonderful it would be if everyone who is a constituent of mine in the 2nd District would have the opportunity to be a congressman for a while. Not because of the opportunity to visit Washington, and not because of the chance to meet foreign dignitaries or powerful people like Lorette Ruby, but because of the opportunity that each of you would have to get out and see Northeast Iowa. I grew up in Northeast Iowa all my life, and as a Dubuquer, I felt that I knew a lot about this area of the country. But when I ran for Congress and began to discover the prairies, the natural prairies down by West Branch, discovered the yellow forest up in Alameda County and Effigy Mounds and a whole host of other wonders of nature in this district, I really began to realize that this is a very special place in our state and a very special place in our nation. And it gives me a great deal of pride to be part of a people that has done so much to preserve the area. We constantly have challenges before us. Before coming here, I was out at the Four Mounds property. And when you win one battle, you know that there are 2 or 3 or 5 more awaiting in the wings. But the people who have been responsible for E.B. Lyons and the mines of Spain and the Friends have just done a terrific job. And it's fitting that we should honor them in this Arbor Day. But of course, today we also have another person who has made a great contribution, not only to conservation, but to humankind. John Kennedy was the one who started the Peace Corps. And some of you may recall the words that ended his inaugural address. Those words were, knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. And when I think what that means, what it is that God's work is, I have to think that the people in the Peace Corps are those who perhaps most exemplify to each of us what that work is, because they carry out that work. There's a Shakespeare sonnet that asks the question, whereof is your substance? Or I suppose we'd say, what is your substance today? And the people in the Peace Corps, people like Kevin, have shown us what their substance is. Their substance is one that cares deeply about humankind. Their substance is one that suggests that there is a great deal of need for those who have to see that others have as well. They are people who share. They are people who give, do not grasp and take. And it is for that reason that we are so pleased to recognize today Kevin Clark. As I read the story in the Telegraph Herald, I don't know how accurate it was, Kevin. I don't always know that the stories about me are accurate when I read them, but it was a very moving story. And the story in the Telegraph Herald struck me in particular because of the statement that the villagers called Kevin, no, let's see if I get this right, Mr. Sapang, is that right? How do you pronounce it? Sapang. Well, whatever. The point is that what the meaning of that is a person who brings hope. And what a wonderful thing to be a person who can bring hope to other people. And that, in a sense, is a mission that all of us have in life. But obviously, Kevin has fulfilled it so much better than most of us. In the past few weeks, there have been a whole series of articles in the Washington Post. There have been a whole series about how the nation is losing hope. What a tragic thing if it's true. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true because of people like Kevin and all of you who have invested in nature and the future of nature, but also invested in the future of humankind. There's a wonderful thought about hope that Oliver Goldsmith wrote in the late 1700s. And if any of you are ever about to lose hope, I urge you to remember the words of Oliver Goldsmith. Hope, like the gleaming taper's light, adorns and cheers our way. And still, as darker grows the night, emits brighter ray. And that's what's so wonderful about hope. The darker things get, the brighter is that notion of hope. What a wonderful tribute by people that you serve, as Kevin did, to be called Mr. The person who brings hope, Mr. Zayfon. And I don't think there's any tribute that can be greater than that. And certainly what we offer here today pales in comparison. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. The honor of having the director of the Peace Corps with us today is obvious. Laurette Ruppy was appointed Peace Corps director in 1981, and she is the longest tenured director. The revitalization of the Peace Corps under her direction has been well chronicled. I would like to mention just a few aspects of the Peace Corps that is of special interest to us on Arbor Day and to us as conservationists. Since Laurette Ruppy assumed the office of director, conservation and the environment has been the major thrust of the Peace Corps programming. Let me detail some facts backing that up. The number of foresters serving in the Peace Corps has quadrupled in the last 5 years. There are currently 500 volunteers with primary reforestation projects and another 1,000 with secondary reforestation projects. In some countries, Kenya, for instance, all volunteers must have a mandatory secondary reforestation project. In a recent World Bank study, it's estimated that the Peace Corps volunteers have planted 3 times as many trees as any other single group, and they've done it at 1/4 the cost. The Peace Corps is currently exploring with a new group called the International Conservation Association, a plan that will build in an environmental model for every Peace Corps program that exists. To be able to introduce to you Laurette Ruppy is a great honor. Laurette Ruppy.
Thank you for a beautiful introduction, Calvin, for meeting my plane and everything else that you and Mrs. Preston have done for me today. But he is saying it's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor to me for me to be here to see Kevin Clark honored today. And I thank each and every one of you who made this event possible. Certainly, Mr. Gesh, for your putting together this beautiful ceremony, the friends of this great association, the Returned Peace Corps volunteers who come out, the Beckleys, the Unstrung Heroes. I love that name. I feel like I represent the unsung heroes, but today, thank goodness, some singing is being done in their honor. Superintendent Hayes, and above all, the family of Kevin Clark. I just think back a few weeks ago when I was in Haiti. Haiti is one of the most hard hit by the lack of conservation. It was 60% forested in the 1960s. It's now down to 6%. They were doing things like exporting charcoal to Canada in the 1960s. They stripped their forests, and now the erosion, the streams are filled with dirt, And I was out there watching volunteers reforesting, doing drywall terracing. But after an arduous climb in a four-wheel vehicle, we came to a small village where volunteers had been serving for the past year. We were having the honor of opening a small forest center. And in the speech of the leader of that village, he told me that I was to go back to the United States and thank the parents of Megan for raising a child who was willing to go overseas and work with other people. So, Mrs. McGinn, great praise to you and the father of Kevin Clark and all your family for raising such an exceptional person as Kevin Clark. And I'm here to show him honor and to thank him for his work. And there's no place else on earth that a director of the Peace Corps should be, but right here in Dubuque, Iowa, at this center, praising this type of work, which is the only real work that will create peace here in Dubuque, by planting trees, by encouraging the environment, by volunteer service, and which will promote peace and understanding overseas. His Majesty, the King of Lesotho, sent me a letter in which he praised the work of volunteers, in which he included Kevin's work. I mean, I've always said I have the best job in Washington, far better than a congressman. And that is I get to work for World Peace Travel, and everyone thanks me for the work of these volunteers, people like Kevin. When I go to remote villages, recently in northern Ghana, we drove in. Of course, the volunteers, always have to walk or ride horseback as they do in Lesotho, or take very crowded buses, but as director, I do get to ride. And there were 3,000 men, women, and children walking into a village from 82 villages around to thank me for the work of a Peace Corps volunteer. Not for Peace Corps, the clenched fists and burning flags that we oftentimes see on the 6 o'clock news. No, this type of work, Kevin Clark's work, planting peach trees, living with the people, learning the language, is what creates real peace and understanding. And we can be proud, as Congressman Taki said, John F. Kennedy, who challenged a generation to serve. And here in the 1980s, where thousands of Americans are still willing to serve of all ages. Our oldest volunteer was recently honored as an outstanding example of public service. He's a mayor, 85 years old, a little bit older than you, Kevin. And he, as I like to say, when he served in Haiti, he used his living allowance to buy a horse. And I said, that's the kind of American, that's attracted to Peace Corps service, young and old. So I've come here to thank Kevin for the incredible gift he's made in the cause of world peace, and to commend him in his incredible spirit when I went to visit him in the hospital in Washington, D.C. To try to say, Kevin, thank you. How do you thank someone? And Kevin turning to me and saying, I really wanted to let you know, Mrs. Rupi, he's very formal. Most of the volunteers call me Lorette, but I guess in Iowa you train them the old-fashioned values. But Mrs. Rupi, he said, I want you to know, he said, some people have said to me, why did I go into the Peace Corps? Look what happened. And he said, I want you to know, he said, I've been trying to call you, tell you this, that I'd do it all over again. And Kevin, I want you to know how you've re-inspired and re-motivated me, and what an incredible example you are to all on this earth, all involved in humanity, in building a better quality of life and creating peace. So it's my great honor to be here. We do want to tell you that we have a Peace Corps partnership program where volunteers working with villagers, working with groups, will either build schools or find a need in their village, much like what Kevin did with his peach orchard and his school and so many other things. And a request came in just in March from Lesotho. And I was trying to think of some way that Peace Corps could show a little bit its thanks to Kevin. So I want you to know, Kevin, that this partnership project, which is to get some equipment to the Ramkakala school in a remote part of Lesotho, not as remote as where you were. Kevin was our most southern volunteer in the whole world. If you look at where Lesotho is, and how many of you who are in this room know where Lesotho is? Well, that's why we have Kevin's out there in Peace Corps to show Americans where 4/5 of the people on Earth live in countries like Lesotho and Swaziland. It's in Southern Africa, and this Ron Pakala suffered a tornado recently where all of their school supplies, the desks, the roof was torn off the school, and a volunteer who's working there has asked with the people to try to work to have the funds to buy cement and some desks and some equipment. So in honor of you, Kevin, we're going to see that that Peace Corps partnership is done so that your work continues on with your peach orchard and school and another school in Lesotho. So I would like to let you know that. And also, if you would come up here just 1 minute, Kevin. Peace Corps would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Kevin Clark in appreciation and recognition of your dedication and unselfish service for the people of Lesotho. Kevin, it is an honor for me to give this to you. You are an inspiration to all of Peace Corps and to all of the world. Thank you very much.
Before Kevin leaves, I'm asking Lorette to present to Kevin the special Arbor Day Recognition Award that is being presented by the Friends of Lions Prairie Woodland in recognition of the peach orchard he helped establish in Lesotho while he was in the Peace Corps. And if I may impose on you just to read the poem, because I think it captures our feeling about the forests, the woods. And on the bottom of the certificate is the prayer of the woods from the ancient Portuguese. I am the heat of your hearth on cold winter nights, the shade screening you from the summer sun, and my fruits are refreshing draughts, quenching your thirst as you journey on. I am the beam that holds your house, and the board of your table, the bed on which you lie, and the timber that builds your boat. I am the handle of your hoe, the door of your homestead, the wood of your cradle, and the shell of your coffin. I am the bread of kindness and the flower of beauty. You who pass me by, listen to my prayer, harm me not. The only other thing I'm asking Lorette to do is to present to Kevin the traditional Friends of Lions Prairie Woodlands recognition, which is a very simple ironwood walking stick. And as in so many things, so many of the valuable things in our life, the value is not in the intrinsic, but in the history and the story that surrounds how the piece was acquired. And I think that this piece has enough of a history that I'm going to just give you a little bit of it. A former director of the Nature Center here was in town. When I told him that we needed an ironwood walking stick, he said, well, I'll come up with one for you. And this is a note that he wrote. And I'm going to give you the unabridged version because I think it's really part of this piece. We cut this blue beech or musselwood, you might say, on the edges of White Pine Hollow. Not actually in it, because that would be against the law. Of course, we, the other person he was with, are both known to stay well inside the law and never on the razor's edge. But then we were not within sight of anybody, so I can't say exactly where we were. To be sure, the intention was there, however, to be lawful. Ironwood, blue bush, or musselwood, it all stands for and symbolizes the indomitable spirit of the woods. It is well fit for the man it is intended for, and for a most elegant lady who is to present it to him. And this is from James D. Rooks, the former director of E.B. Lyons Nature Center.
So, Kevin, may I present this iron walking stick for an honor and recognition of the tremendous gift you have made to worldwide conservation. Thank you. Now it's my honor also to extend greetings from President Reagan, who asked me to especially commend your service and to send you his greetings. To thank Congressman Talkie for the strong support he's always given the Peace Corps, and to just introduce you with the words, when I was in Honduras recently, an agrarian reformer there said to me, Lorette, to have art, you must have artists. To have philosophy, you must have philosophers. To have peace, you must have peacemakers. May I introduce you to, as he said, the peacemakers of the 20th century, Peace Corps volunteers, and one of our most exceptional peacemakers, Kevin Clark.
Thank you very much. It's really it's really kind of a difficult honor, if there is such a thing, to be standing up here like this today. You know, to be honored by an organization that I love, like the Peace Corps, and to be honored by the Friends, E.B. Lyons. It's not an easy honor to accept, but I do it graciously, and I just can't tell you really how happy I am to be here, how thankful I am for my awards, and there's no way I can tell you what it really means to me. Most of you haven't seen me before, and this really isn't the way I usually look. The lines on my side of my face are from radiation that I've been receiving at the Finley Hospital. The reason for my short hair is for chemotherapy treatments I've been receiving at Mercy Hospital. And I'm having a little bit of a problem with one of my eyes, so I'm kind of covering that up. As I say, this usually isn't the way I look. Personally, I think it's the best I've looked in about 4 months. That was a joke. You know, when you take a close look at organizations like the Friends and like Peace Corps, you can see a lot of resemblances. They're both involved in ecology. They both teach. I think most of all, they both offer a sense of hope for the future. Peace Corps, of course, on an international scale, but equally as important, E.B. Lyons on a local scale. As I said earlier, it's just a real honor to be here, and I'm really touched by all of you coming. I'm touched by the Peace Corps, and there's a couple people that I'd really like to recognize that are still in Africa. There was a woman over there, about a 65-year-old woman, who took very good care of me the whole 2 years I was there. Her name was Mema Taban, and she was very good to me and very dear to me. I'd also like to recognize a man who financially made my peach orchard projects successful. That's Dr. Julian Members from Dubuque here. He financed it all out of his own pocket and was very, very generous. And thirdly, and I suppose equally as important and most touching to me, I couldn't let today pass without recognizing my deceased father. And So I'm really moved by this. I thank you. I had a lot more to say, but I think you understand. So thank you. God bless you.
The Friends is a wonderful group made up of just wonderful people. We could not have put on today's event without some just wonderful work from Barb Severson, Mike Abel, and Betty Hopley, who are on the staff here. And I want to make sure that everyone is aware of how important they are. We're very fortunate to have people of this caliber in our midst. When I was talking to Kevin about the program, and I said, Kevin, I want you to say a few words. And then we were talking about, well, then what happens next? And I said, well, I'm going to get up there and say, well, chow's on, and go get it. And Kevin said to me, and he said, now, come on, this has got to be a high-class act. You can't just say chow's on. So the hors d'oeuvre table is set. But we have to have, we need to give them about 10 or 15 minutes. And okay, the music will start. Please mingle and talk to people you haven't met, to Kevin, to Laurette Rupi, and others. And thank you for coming today.
Kevin, we'd like to, before everybody kind of leaves and to mingle with one another, I would like to just mention that we have written a song about the mines of Spain. As long as we've got everybody as a captive audience, we want to do it for it right now.
Louis, if you would, at some point, I'd like Louis to introduce the members of his group. Louis Fauch is the director. To play a song, but at some point, get to know them too. And their tapes are available for those of you who would wish to buy one. The hors d'oeuvre table is downstairs and will be available in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Calvin. And I want to say also, we're so very honored just to be here today with all of these dignitaries and of course, just being here at EB Lions, which we kind of consider to be our second home. We just love it here. We've been appearing here every year for about the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years. This is so very, very conducive, and I guess so suitable for the type of music that we play, I guess. And we did, I wrote a song about 2 years ago that's on our most recent tape called The Mines of Spain, that tells a little bit about my own thoughts about it. And while we still have you folks here captive, and before we go down to eat, I'd like you to listen to it, because I think it's very appropriate for this occasion.
Homes on the skyline bring the memories all back as we head for the bridge on the old railroad track. Then into a world which feels good at our side, where gifts from a great loving God still abide. The mines of Spain to you will be kind. They'll tickle your fancy and sing in your mind. Give food for the soul like an old long lost friend, and welcome you back to their wonders again.
catfish where Julian's Bluff stands, and where the Fox Indians once ruled over the land. We can feel their presence in our sights and sounds as we tread lightly on their hallowed ground. The lines of saying to you will be kind. They'll tickle your fancy and sing in your mind. Give food for the soul like an old long lost friend, and welcome you back to their wonders again. Long may the catfish in its splendor flow, and long may the flowers of prairie grass grow in the towering trees and the wind's loving call. The mines of Spain belong to us all. The mines of Spain to you will be kind. They'll tickle your fancy and sing in your mind. Give food for a soul like an old long lost friend, and welcome you back to their wonders again. And welcome you back to their wonders again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Folks, you're dismissed. Thanks. We will be playing for about the next hour and 15 minutes, and we'd be real happy to talk to anybody afterwards and about our instruments that we play, which are numerous, as you can see. And please enjoy yourselves and have a good time.
Talk about John Henry just as much as you please. Say and do all that you can. And then lay under the sun. Now every love goes to the moon. Says younger eyes to see the bride. Younger eyes to see the bride.
It is not easy.
Steering by the storms don't know what to say, especially somebody just feels inside, grateful how it's took time, since the place I got so tobacco to those looking for no prices, just ask us to pay. Take the phone from the take me through the listen to me now we always seem to they like the best of the show. Here's much very simple. When the least in passion, it's every buried in Western town. It was a hot summer day. How many shots took the story, just stay close. It was he seems just gone, two eyes and so much more. No price is hard, just ask how much to pay. Take it from the finger and take
Thanks. That's it. we can talk tonight away. Hold hands and fly away. With each other we'll always stay. Have to shoot
a forestry person. Timber seedlings, does timber seedlings. I know Catherine. This is my sister, Catherine. She's 303.
Don't kill me, he runs the blended tree. And people they did say, go miles and feet. Was brought by Frank and Jesse Jim. Future neighbor brave. But that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, that's late boy just in his grave. It was always name I never did know my shine right. They're running the Glendale train to know his mind. Reaching neighbor brave, but that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard, as they boys you just see his grave. It was on Saturday night, Jesse was talking to his family friend. Robert Ford came along like a thief in the night, and they poured Jesse's grave. Jesse had two more. To the beautiful life. Right there. Nice job.